I was sitting at my mahogany desk, sunlight spilling across the skyline of Manhattan, the hum of the city below like a steady heartbeat. My silk blouse clung softly to my shoulders, a reminder that I could afford small luxuries now, luxuries I once only dreamed about. My phone buzzed on the glass surface. I glanced at it and froze. It was a text from Jake, my cousin, the same one who spent years mocking my degree in fine arts, laughing at the useless hours I spent painting and studying design. "Hey, can you help me with tuition?" the message read. For a moment, a bitter laugh escaped me. How ironic. He, who once dismissed my dreams, now depended on me for a future I had fought to build alone. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, my mind racing. Pride? Yes. Hurt? Absolutely. But also a strange calm. This time, the power was mine. I looked out the window, the wind scattering papers on my balcony, and thought of all those late nights I had endured, stacking brushes and books while he threw empty jabs over dinner tables. No one had believed in me then, but I had survived, flourished even, quietly. And now, the one who had laughed at me needed me. I could almost hear the echo of his voice in my head, taunting, "What good is your degree?" Today, I had the answer, and I would deliver it on my terms. I remember that summer evening like it was yesterday. The family had gathered in our old suburban house in New Jersey, the smell of grilled burgers and soda filling the air. I had just finished my first year at art school, clutching my portfolio nervously, hoping for at least a flicker of pride from my relatives. Jake sat across from me, leaning back in his chair, smirk playing on his lips. "So, you really think staring at paint all day is going to get you somewhere?" he asked loud enough for everyone to hear. The laughter that followed cut deeper than any knife. Even Aunt Carol chuckled, shaking her head, and Uncle Ben's eyes darted away, pretending not to notice. My hands shook as I set the portfolio down, the lump in my throat threatening to choke me. I wanted to yell, to defend myself, but words stuck somewhere between humiliation and disbelief. I felt small, almost invisible, like my dreams had been tossed aside along with everyone's expectations. It was Grandma Louise who noticed. She had always been my quiet refuge. Pulling me aside later, she pressed a delicate, worn book into my hands. "Never let them measure your worth, darling. Talent doesn't need approval. It needs courage," she whispered, her eyes steady and full of warmth. Her words burned into me, igniting something I hadn't felt before, a determination that no mockery, no laughter, no scoffing cousin would ever erase. That night, I stayed in my room, sketching, planning, and imagining a life where my work mattered. By the next morning, I had made a decision. I would prove them wrong, not through revenge, but through quiet, relentless success. I would leave behind the whispers of doubt and the sting of ridicule. I would walk my own path, step by step, brushstroke by brushstroke, until the world recognized my value. That was the moment I stopped being the girl everyone underestimated. That was the moment I became unstoppable. After that night with Grandma Louise's words etched in my mind, I dove headfirst into my craft. Art school had been just the beginning, but the real challenge was stepping into the world where talent didn't automatically translate to success. I took odd jobs, painting murals in local cafes, designing logos for small businesses, teaching weekend art classes to kids, anything that kept me afloat while I honed my skills. That's when I met Rachel, a seasoned art curator in Manhattan. She spotted my work in a tiny gallery tucked between a boutique and a bookstore. "You've got raw talent," she said, eyes scanning my portfolio with a mixture of curiosity and appreciation. "But raw talent alone won't take you anywhere. Let me teach you how to sell it." Rachel became my mentor, pushing me to apply for competitions, exhibitions, and freelance contracts. I worked late nights, fueled by coffee and stubborn determination, perfecting each brushstroke and business pitch. Not every day was victorious. There were rejections that left me questioning my worth, clients who underestimated me, and moments when self-doubt crept in like a shadow. I learned to sit with that unease, to let it sharpen me rather than break me. Small victories kept me going. My first client who paid more than promised, my first gallery exhibit where a painting sold within hours, the quiet thrill of seeing my bank balance grow. Every step forward felt like reclaiming a piece of myself that had been mocked for so long. I kept my progress hidden from my family. I posted modest updates on social media, never revealing the full scale of my achievements. I didn't need applause or validation. I only needed to know I was building a future they couldn't laugh at. Each success became a secret celebration, a small rebellion against the doubts that had once surrounded me. By the time I turned 28, I had a flourishing design studio in Manhattan, a loyal clientele, and a growing reputation in the art world. The loft I rented overlooked the city skyline, a constant reminder of how far I had come from the cramped bedroom in New Jersey where my dreams had once seemed laughable. And every time I looked at Grandma Louise's old book on my shelf, I smiled. That tiny spark of encouragement had led me here, to a life that was mine, entirely and unapologetically mine. And yet, I never forgot Jake. The cousin who had laughed at my degree, who had dismissed my ambitions as foolish, remained in the background of my mind. Little did he know, the same degree he mocked had quietly built a foundation solid enough to one day hold the key to his future. It was a crisp autumn morning when Jake finally reached out. I hadn't spoken to him in years, not since graduation, not since he'd sneered at my degree and claimed I'd end up wasting my life. And yet, here he was, nervously texting me for help with tuition. I agreed to meet him at my studio, telling myself it would be a casual catch-up. The moment he stepped into the space, I let him take it all in. The loft had floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the skyline of Manhattan. Abstract paintings hung on pristine white walls, and the soft hum of classical music played from hidden speakers. A sleek oak desk held contracts, awards, and framed press mentions of my work. Every detail screamed success, yet I didn't say a word. Jake froze, eyes widening as he scanned the room. His jaw tightened, a flicker of unease crossing his face. "Wow, this is impressive," he muttered, voice catching slightly. I smiled, the corners of my mouth lifting just enough to show calm confidence, but not gloating. I walked him through the studio, casually pointing out a few of my pieces that had been featured in galleries. "That one sold for $20,000 last month," I said lightly, watching him swallow hard. I could see the disbelief and shame mixing in his expression. He expected a struggling artist, someone who barely made rent. Not this carefully built empire of talent and persistence. Finally, I stopped by my desk, leaned against it, and looked him straight in the eyes. "Jake, do you remember when you laughed at my degree? When you said it was useless?" His face reddened, guilt settling in like a heavy weight. "Well, that same degree," I let the words hang, savoring the tension, "is the reason I can pay for your education now." He blinked, speechless. "Wait, you're serious?" His voice wavered, a mix of awe and humiliation. I nodded, calm and unwavering. "Yes. I can help you, but it's not free. And it comes with conditions." The room seemed to shrink around him, and I could see the internal battle waging in his eyes, pride clashing with recognition, arrogance dissolving into respect. I let him stew for a moment longer, enjoying the quiet satisfaction of flipping the narrative, of holding the power that had once been denied to me. For years, I had carried the sting of ridicule silently, letting it fuel late nights and early mornings. Now, the very person who had mocked me was standing in the orbit of my success, humbled and seeking guidance. The tables had turned, and this time, I was the one in control. As he finally gathered himself to speak, I let a small, knowing smile touch my lips. This wasn't revenge, it was justice, tempered with compassion. I wasn't here to punish him, only to remind him that talent, persistence, and integrity always outlast mockery. For the first time in years, I felt the sweet release of vindication. The cousin who had once sneered at my future now depended on me, and I could decide how his story would unfold. The balance of power had shifted, and I had earned it entirely through my own resilience. Jake stood there, mouth slightly open, eyes darting nervously around my studio as he tried to process the reality before him. I took a slow breath, letting the weight of the moment settle. This wasn't just about proving him wrong anymore. It was about guiding him, reshaping the arrogance that had once fueled his mockery into something productive. "I'll help you," I said finally, voice calm but firm. "But there are conditions. This isn't charity, it's accountability. You want a future that matters, and I can give you the tools. But you need to meet me halfway." He nodded quickly, almost desperately. "Anything." "I'll do anything." I smiled, a little wryly. "Good. First, you'll respect education. That means no skipping classes, no shortcuts, no excuses. You're going to approach your studies with the seriousness you once mocked in me." His shoulders slumped slightly, the weight of reality sinking in. I continued. "Second, you must commit fully. Half-hearted effort won't get you anywhere, and I won't fund half-hearted dreams. You'll complete your degree, take it seriously, and show progress each semester." I paused, letting each point land. "Third, you need to drop the arrogance and entitlement. Mocking others never built anything. You'll work on your humility, learn to value talent and hard work, and carry yourself with respect for yourself and others." He swallowed, nodding again, this time more thoughtfully. I understand," he said quietly. "And finally," I added, softer this time, "you need to discover what drives you, what you're passionate about. I can provide the financial support, but you have to find your own motivation, your own purpose. This isn't about me proving a point anymore. It's about helping you grow into someone you're proud of." He looked at me, a flicker of awe mixed with humility crossing his features. "I never realized. I always thought it was just a joke," he admitted. "I see now. I have a lot to learn." "Yes," I said gently. "And that's okay. Growth takes time, but it starts with honesty and effort. I'm not here to punish you, Jake. I'm here to give you the chance I never had, to make a difference in your life the way Grandma Louise helped me see my own worth." I could see it then, the shift. The cousin who had once sneered at me was listening, really listening. For the first time, the arrogance that had defined him for years was replaced with curiosity, respect, and maybe even gratitude. The power had shifted, but it wasn't a game of revenge. It was a transfer of responsibility, a chance to shape the future of someone who had once underestimated me. And as I watched him process it all, I felt a quiet satisfaction. I had not only built a life of my own, I had also created the space to uplift someone else, on my terms, with my rules, and with the lessons I had learned the hard way. Months passed, and Jake slowly began to change. He embraced his studies with a seriousness I had never seen before, attending every lecture, taking meticulous notes, and even asking questions that reflected real curiosity. The arrogance that once defined him had softened into humility, replaced by genuine effort and respect for learning. I watched from a distance, feeling a mix of pride and quiet amusement. It was strange, almost surreal, to see the cousin who had once mocked me now growing under the guidance I provided. He stumbled occasionally. Old habits die hard, but each misstep was met with reflection, not defiance. The lessons I had insisted upon were taking root. One evening, as I walked past Grandma Louise's old book on my shelf, I ran my fingers over its worn cover. "Talent doesn't need approval. It needs courage." Those words had carried me through years of doubt, sleepless nights, and lonely battles. Now, they had become part of another journey too, reminder that courage can inspire change beyond oneself. Sitting at my desk that night, I reflected on the long road that had brought me here, the whispered doubts at family gatherings, the sleepless nights in my tiny New Jersey bedroom, the early mornings in my Manhattan studio, and every small victory that had quietly accumulated into the life I now owned. I had been mocked, underestimated, and dismissed, but none of it had broken me. Instead, it had shaped the woman I had become, resilient, decisive, and unapologetically powerful. Jake had grown too, and in his transformation, I found a new kind of satisfaction, not just in my success, but in witnessing the impact of guidance tempered with accountability. He was learning to value effort, humility, and respect, lessons I had once had to learn alone. I closed my eyes for a moment, breathing in the calm of my studio, the city lights twinkling beyond the windows. I had carved a life defined not by others' expectations, but by my own vision, and now I had extended that vision to help someone who once doubted me. And as I opened my eyes, I smiled. The last piece of the puzzle fit perfectly into place. He once laughed at my degree. Today, that same degree pays for his future.